Now reconvene the regular meeting of the Board of Education at 7 p.m. with Blair, Cruz, Na, Roscoe, and Fikes present. Before we begin, please silence all electronic devices and note that these proceedings are being recorded. Pat.
The board met in closed session from 5:30 to 6:50 p.m. regarding conference with legal counsel, existing and anticipated litigation, public employee discipline dismissal release, and conference with labor negotiators, agency designated representatives Sylvia Orozco and James Naw, unrepresented employee, new superintendent Dr. Norm Enfield. The board voted to accept the resignation agreement and general release between the district and certificated employee number 7626, effective March 9th, 2018, by the following vote: Cruz, Blair, Na, Orozco, and Fikes voting yes, and voted to approve a settlement agreement in Cal 200 v. Apple Valley Unified School District et al., a lawsuit that named the district, among others, many others, regarding physical education instruction in grades 1 through 6. A copy of the agreement is available upon request by the following vote: Cruz, Blair, Na, Orozco, and Fikes voting yes, and pursuant to Education Code 44951, authorize the superintendent or his designee to release a certificated management employee identified by number 25112, effective June 30th, 2018, by the following vote: Cruz, Blair, Na, Orozco, Fikes voting yes. No further action was taken that requires public disclosure.
Thank you. Leading the Pledge of Allegiance tonight is Glenmead Elementary School student Sophia Armenta.
Please join us in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. Put your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, President Fikes and board members, Superintendent Mr. Joseph, and Cabinet. I have the honor of presenting Glenmead students this evening.
Before you start, could you introduce yourself?
No.
I was going to say.
I'm going to keep myself a secret. No.
That we are happy to have Mrs. Sunderland, the principal at Glenmead Elementary School, who recently celebrated their 50th anniversary, and she has students here to read their essays.
Yes. Thank you. Because
You're welcome.
We had a
You're
big
welcome.
50th last week, and we did a school-wide essay contest for our upper grade students. And I brought with me the winner and our two runner-ups who did a fabulous job. You're not going to get the full essay, but you're going to get kind of a condensed version. So I'll let them introduce themselves.
Hello, my name is Jacob Garcia. I am a Glenmead student who is in 6th grade. So, why is Glenmead special to me? I'll tell you that Glenmead is special to me because of the education, family generations, and exciting programs. First, Glenmead is a school where all children can set goals for themselves and be assured to learn. The teacher will stop at no cost to make sure every child learns. Next, Glenmead has been the choice of some families for many generations. We have teachers that attended Glenmead and parents of students who have attended Glenmead as well. They choose Glenmead because they know it's a great school. Finally, the exciting programs make Glenmead fun. This year, we'll be holding our 23rd annual talent show. It's a great opportunity for students to showcase their talent to all the other Roadrunners. These are only a few reasons why Glenmead is special to me.
Hi, my name is Sophia Armenta. I'm in 6th grade and I attend Glenmead Elementary School. Glenmead is special. Glenmead has stood out to me for many reasons. Those reasons include the student council, great staff members, and the various programs available to students. The student council helps develop leadership qualities in students. The student council plans activities and helps students feel welcomed at school. They find fun ways to raise money for charities like our Jump Rope for Heart event. Students jump rope to raise money to support kids with heart disease. The staff members work very hard to teach us to make sure we receive a good education. The office staff does a great job and is always very caring for the students. The PTA raises money for field trips and fun events for us to enjoy. Finally, the programs available to students make Glenmead fun. Christian Release is one of the programs that comes to mind that I enjoy. I'm going to miss Glenmead as I move on to junior high. For the last 7 years, Glenmead has been special to me because of the leadership programs, great staff members, and all the student programs.
Hello, my name is George Lopez. I am in 6th grade and I also attend Glenmead Elementary. Why Glenmead is so special? I have been attending Glenmead since 1st grade and it feels more like a second home than a school. I love knowing that Glenmead has been making kids feel the same way I do for 50 years. The things that make Glenmead so special to me are the caring staff, the great friends, and the fun events. Every day, the staff shows through their actions and words how much they care for their students. One example was when I was diagnosed with a brain tumor and had to miss a lot of school. The staff helped my family and I with the transition back to school and catching up with all the work I had missed while I was gone. They were so gentle and kind, it made me feel as though they were truly my family. I don't know what classes 6th graders in the past took, but I have PE, computers, math, language arts, social studies, and most importantly, time with friends. I enjoy playing football, basketball, and soccer. I would tell the future 6th graders to do their best work, be nice to the teachers, be friendly with everyone, and that elementary school goes by really fast. In addition to the great staff, good friends, Glenmead is fun. We do a lot of great activities like field trips, assemblies, campus events, and service projects that bring us all together. My favorite things are bingo night, art auction, and band events. I love bingo night, and over the years, I have won a total of 4 baskets, and I have never gone home empty-handed. At the art auction event, students' artwork is auctioned off to keep the Art Academy classes going. I always look forward to the band showcases because band students get to show off all their hard work and play the best for us. It is a fun time to have. I know there are many elementary schools in Chino Hills, but I feel fortunate that my family chose to send me to Glenmead. Even though it does not look like my house, Glenmead feels like home, and I always feel welcome.
Mr. Na.
Wow. George, I was thinking about you all week since we met at the anniversary. I'd like to propose of changing our school name to a Glenmead Family School. That's what I felt. When I went, I haven't heard so much of praises about teachers from students from any schools combined. You could say 100 schools. But I think this is what it takes to bring out our future. Whoever you are, where you're healthy and not so healthy, but everybody's there for together. And the parents, you guys really have felt it. And that's the pride that I want to have it in my heart for the rest of my life because of what you guys have done. So thank you so much for stepping up, being a good students, but also knowing and understanding the appreciation of our situations here today. Many of us do not take things with gratitude, and we always ask for things. But you guys have really stepped up and felt the true love from our teachers and our staffs there. And I'm sure that you'll become like them when you grow up. So I'd like to thank everybody here, especially, can I have the parents stand up? I think we have a good gene pool here. Thank you. The, thank you. The true education starts at home. That's what I believe. And I'm just grateful that we have wonderful teachers who really care for your children. I'm being a second parent. But with our support like this, how could kids fail? There's no way. And I see the product. So thank you, and have a great night. Thank you.
Mrs. Orozco?
Well, I had the opportunity to attend the anniversary, and it was wonderful. But, you know, I am really glad that I got to hear the other stories or the other essays, because they're all wonderful. All three of them were great. And it really does give us an opportunity to feel what you're feeling just by what you've written. So great job.
And lastly, I would like to add, I was an English teacher and a speech teacher. You guys are ready for junior high. Those were really well written, well organized. But then as a speech teacher, I have to say, I was pretty impressed with how you delivered those speeches. Because when you write an essay, that's a lot different than having to read it out loud. And you all were making such a great effort to have eye contact and gestures, and that really makes your writing come alive. So I know you're going to have a great experience in junior high. I hope you find a sanctuary for yourself that's just as warm and welcoming as you have found at Glenmead.
And George Lopez, in 50 years, you're going to become superintendent, and you're going to be doing the talking. I remember.
Did the parents want to take pictures?
Yes,
You're welcome to do that. They should come up here. Yeah, the three students in front. Move your thing down. Oh, so it's not out of their head, growing out of their head. Well, that's a great beginning for our board meeting. Dr. Park, would you like to introduce the next LCAP presentation? Where is she?
Marty over here.
Oh, right there.
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Joseph, Cabinet, and community, we have our fourth part to our annual update on our local control accountability plan. Our report this evening will be on school climate, gleaning from the results of the recently administered California Healthy Kids Survey, along with a local survey that was administered to our students. The California Healthy Kids Survey is a state-approved survey, and it allows school districts to gauge the quality of our schools. It's tied to State Priority 6, which is school climate. For the purposes of LCAP, school climate, as the state has defined it, refers to students' connectedness with school and school safety. It's also one measure that we use to gauge our progress with LCAP Goal 2, engagement. I'd like to introduce Dr. Sherry Johnson, who is our Director of Health Services, and she will be reviewing the Healthy Kids Survey. And along with that, she's going to be adding to that information by reviewing the results of our locally administered survey and sharing with you very briefly our actions and services that are in place to support school climate.
Good evening, President Fikes, Mr. Joseph, Superintendent, Board, and Cabinet. Okay, so we're going to delve into the Healthy Kids Survey. The Healthy Kids Survey was developed by CDE to provide data to assist schools in assessing student needs, and as Dr. Park mentioned, school climate. Just to give you a little bit of background, those that participated were grades 5, 7, 9, and 11. This is the first year we've asked grades 5 to participate. For the students in grade 5, it is an active consent, so parents give permission in writing for the student to take part in the survey. For the remaining grades, it's passive consent, but it's voluntary, it's confidential, and it's anonymous, so there's no way to know who or what student said what in the survey. It provides information regarding student perception, regarding a safe and supportive school climate, and it really is a measure of the student's perception regarding their social emotional development, as well as their needs, their competencies, as well as their engagement in learning. So additionally, it also gives us as staff, parents, students themselves, and the community to really look at the meaning behind the results, and then from that, look at actions and services that we can move forward with, which is what we'll begin to do with the data. Okay, so a little bit about the demographics. In terms of grades 7, 9, 11, and non-traditional, the non-traditional refers to Buena Vista and to CVLA. We had, I'm actually having a hard time with the glasses here. We had 6,645 students that participated, and that represents 84% of the students. In grade 5, we had 1,388 students, and that represents 66% of the 5th grade students. And as you can see, there's the breakdown for the male and the females that participated. In terms of the survey itself, it requires a response rate of 70% for it to be considered valid or representative of the student population. So the 5th grade class, if you took note, had 66% of the students respond. It's pretty close to 70%, so we felt that it would be helpful to include that data, but as we go through the data, keep in mind that it's not fully at that 70%, so we'll want to be somewhat careful in how we interpret that data. But we certainly had more than enough students participate at the other grade levels for it to be a valid survey. So most of the questions on the Healthy Kids Survey are based on a Likert scale, and they range from strongly agree to strongly disagree as one measure, and then the other is based on 0 times to 4 or more times. So for our interpretation of the data for tonight's presentation, it was based on a strongly agree to agree, so we looked at the data within those categories, as well as 0 times or never, and you'll see that as we go through some of the slides. So our first indicator, key indicator, is the mental and physical health of our students. Remember, this is their perception. It assesses their mental as well as physical well-being. And looking at the data, you can see that for grades 7, 9, and 11, there really is a high percentage of students who have never used alcohol, cigarettes, e-vaping, or marijuana. But of note, we can see that 4.5% of 7, 9, and 11th grade students reported the use of drugs 3 or more days. So that other wasn't a never. I just thought it was an important piece for you to see. So just keep that in mind. So as you look over at the non-traditional, we'll talk about that for a little bit. Remember, those include the students at Buena Vista and at CVLA. And we know that students that, there are some students that just, it's not a good fit for them at a high school, and for various reasons, the choice is to move to Buena Vista, and in some cases to CVLA. And Dr. Park and I actually had an opportunity to meet with some students in the non-traditional setting as part of the student engagement piece of LCAP. And it was actually, I think, one of the most wonderful experiences that I've had, because the connectedness they feel to Buena Vista is just absolutely amazing. They had nothing but praise. They feel comfortable there. So really the disconnect for them is really that experience that they had at a traditional large setting. So keep that in mind as we go through the data, as we look at grades 7, 9, and 11 versus non-traditional. It was interesting to note, never use smokeless tobacco, 99%, so that was a really great statistic. The other area that I wanted to present to you is cyberbullying. So 75% of students indicated that they have not experienced any cyberbullying for the 7, 9, and 11 versus the traditional 78, so it's pretty even there. Most of our 7, 9, and 11 students are eating breakfast in the morning, 62% of them versus 44% for the non-traditional. So as we're looking at data, remember we're looking at it from the perspective of what possible action can we take, and then what services potentially may we put in place to address that. So when you look at 44% of our CVLA Buena Vista kiddos not eating breakfast in the morning, that's a possible action, right? The next section that I wanted to talk about is the chronic sadness in the past 12 months. While that's a relatively low percentage of 29% of 7, 9, and 11 that have reported that they felt sad, there's 44% of students in the non-traditional that have reported sadness within the last 12 months. So that's a fairly significant number of students that are reporting concerns. And from a mental health perspective and the supports and services that we're putting in place, that would definitely be something that we would want to look at. And we are looking at, certainly through our K-8 programs with our MTSSB, and as we're moving into high school, and also hoping to tap into the non-traditional programs with our support services, that would be an area that we would want to look at. The mental and physical health for 5th grade, you can see that 84% report that they've not used any alcohol, inhalants, or marijuana. 100% haven't smoked a whole cigarette. That's really great. 86% of our kids are eating breakfast, and 70% are indicating that they've not been teased about body or body image. This next is our LCAP metric of school safety. We looked at the California Healthy Kids Survey, and I'll talk in a little bit about the school quality survey. So the results of the Healthy Kids Survey show that for 7, 9, and 11, 64% of the students indicate feeling safe at school, and 54% of our students reported feeling safe in our non-traditional settings. I also, just to give you an idea of some other areas that I looked at, these were just general questions. These were questions that were asked. That feel safe at school was one question, and the other questions were individual questions as well, not necessarily part of a group of questions. So you can see in terms of mean rumors and being made fun of and not being called names or not being pushed, slapped, or kicked. So you can see that in the 60s and 70% in terms of the reporting on those particular questions. For 5th grade, one question of feel safe at school. 80% of our 5th graders reported feeling safe at school. 57 said they've never been hit. 55 never had rumors spread, or 53% never had names called. I was pleased to see the results of this next question. Teachers make it clear that bullying is not allowed. 80% of our students reported that that's been communicated to them. Our second step curriculum with our multi-tiered systems of support has some anti-bullying lessons contained in them. and it's a big part of that curriculum. So 80% of our students are saying that we're making it clear at school that bullying isn't allowed. The next indicator is the connectedness, that school connectedness. And let me just read you some of the questions that they were asked. I'm going to roll this down. There it is. Some of the questions that they were asked: I feel close to people, I'm happy at school, I feel part of school, and I feel I'm being treated fairly. So those were the types of questions that were asked under that particular category. 66% of our students, 7, 9, and 11, reported that they feel connected. Non-traditional school, 54%. But then, remember, looking back, really, we feel it's a reflection of their previous experience at school. One of the lowest areas was the meaningful participation. And let me just read a few of those questions they were asked. I do interesting activities at school. I help decide class activities that I like to do, or the things that I like to do make a difference. I help decide school activities and rules. And that actually was the lowest score, which is interesting. So our students feel that they want to be part of that process of deciding what goes on at school in terms of activities, and then even the whole development of school rules, which as part of, as the high schools move into multi-tiered systems of support and that positive behavioral supports, actually part of that process is for the students to become involved in that development of those expectations for the schools. Or the 5th graders would have already had that process taking place because we're already in the elementary school. But the others, academic motivation, our kids are motivated with 76% and 61%. School engagement for 5th grade, the connectedness piece, 72% of our 5th graders say they're connected to school. And again, that meaningful participation was a low area for our 5th graders as well. It was the same exact questions that I mentioned in the high school survey or the secondary survey. So that would certainly be something we want to look at for future actions and services and interventions for our students. Okay, so let's look at the results. What I want to point out first is that school quality survey, and you'll see that there, 2017-18. I believe it was the first year that we've utilized this. It was for grades 6 through 11. And if you look at the connectedness score on that particular survey, well, I actually want to point out first the sample size. So the sample size for the school quality survey was a pretty large sample. So, as we know, the larger the sample, the better results we get. And so we had, over 9,000 students respond to this particular survey. So we felt like it's probably a pretty good representation of our students as a whole. So 72% on the school quality survey indicated they feel connected to school. And when we look at grades 7, 9, and 11, and then combined 5th grade, we had a 70% rate on the Healthy Kids survey. So generally speaking, we felt that we didn't meet that particular goal. We're getting closer. But then again, as we look at actions and services and do our planning, that will be something we would need to address. School safety was really good. We met that. You can see that. The school quality survey, 76% of students indicated they feel safe at school. And on the Healthy Kids survey, it was 72%. So we feel that we met the goal in that area. Okay. So I've mentioned actions and services, and so I want to talk a little bit about our actions and our services. I'm not going to present outcome data tonight. We'll do that in May. We're still collecting data on all of our programs, but I'd like to give you just kind of an overview of what we've been doing in our schools and in our programs. Let me just talk a little bit about the difference between multi-tiered systems of support and PBIS, because I think that folks are confused by that. So multi-tiered systems of support is our framework of our interventions with students. And we've aligned that with our academics in terms of a multi-tiered system of support where we have tiered levels of intervention. And within those tiers are the different strategies or the programs that we put in place. So for PBIS is a strategy. It's an evidence-based strategy that we infuse within our framework of multi-tiered systems of support. And we'll talk a bit about that, but let me kind of go back then to what we're doing kind of globally. We do have 11 FTE counselors, intervention counselors that are in our schools, K through 8, and then there are 4 at the high school. The role of the intervention counselors at our K-8 schools it's been pretty well defined because we've been implementing MTSSB now for three plus years. And so when we look at, what they've been doing in terms of services to kiddos, we have 915 students to date. And remember, we'll collect data toward the end of the school year and certainly May when we come back and give you some data as well. 915 students have been seen at our top 2 tiers, tiers 2 and 3. Our tier 1, all students are receiving services through the PBIS as well as the second step curriculum that we deliver in every classroom at least once a week for our students. It's lessons that are delivered by the teacher. They have also completed 71 class push-in lessons where they'll go into classrooms to address the needs, giving additional support, where they've addressed needs with over 1,000 students. They've done individual consultations and individual work with students. That might be consulting with a teacher. It may be helping a teacher develop some plans for individual students. We've had 112 students meet the goal. We set goals for every student that is pulled out for services in Tier 2 and Tier 3. 112 have met goals. A lot of them are still in process. We've participated in 40 internal TFIs, Tiered Fidelity Inventory walks. We've talked about that. Those are the walks that we conduct 3 times a year, 2 being internal, where we're looking at the systems that are in place for the schools with the behavioral expectations. We interview teachers, we interview classified staff, we interview students to look at the fidelity of the implementation of our positive behavior supports and the behavioral expectations that have been developed. And we also do, the counselors also go in and do specific training. This year they focused on training the teachers with intervention strategies for students that have attentional difficulties or difficulties with hyperactivity and impulsivity. And so every school received at least 1 training in that, and some have requested 2, as well as crisis management and behavior support. In terms of the PBIS, we joined with the county for them to provide more formalized training for our schools. So all of our high schools are involved at this point. We had 14 full days of training for our K-8 schools, 6 full days for our high schools, and then we've begun to do some training ourselves with staff because the goal will be for us to take over and to be able to support our staff without having that contract forever with the county. We've also worked with parent engagement, with the Parent Engagement Center. They've been to training and they're now beginning to implement some PBIS and multi-tiered systems of support strategies with the community and with parents. Looking at our TIKES and our infant toddler program. This is a program that focuses on children younger than kindergarten, so below age 5. We've had 125 parents and guardians that have participated in the program. We've had 43 students that have been served. 576 units of service, meaning case management and consultation with parents, enrichment sessions, 403 sessions for our children that are 2.5 hours each per session. Buena Vista has a full-time nurse that supports the infant and toddler program. Our Hope Centers, they're doing an amazing job. We have provided support to 650 low-income families, and those are unduplicated, and then also support services and case management for McKinney-Vento, and that's our homeless population. We have provided support to 438. So about 1,100 families have been served through the Hope Center. It's only March. We've had 3,311 units of service, so those are the direct contacts and referrals. And our care closets, we now have, we have two. We have one at the adult school, and then we have one at Don Lugo. 894 care closet visits. So we have 6 Hope Centers in the district, and we have 3 satellites where they go 1 day a week to 3 schools. We also have a grant support specialist working with the homeless students, where we have identified over 1,500 students for McKinney-Vento, the homeless program. We made referrals through Hope for students. We have tutoring programs for our homeless McKinney-Vento students. We have 62 that have been referred. Currently, there are 32 that are actively receiving services. Our district health clinic, that's located on the adult school campus. They have provided 500 unduplicated services to families, 770 vaccinations, a lot of vaccinations, and 1,500 units of service, and that would be referrals, it would be health, wellness, physicals, etc. Our Safe School Ambassadors, so if we look at the framework of MTSSB, where would that fit? That would be a Tier 1 service where we're supporting all students with our Safe School Ambassadors program. Our foster youth counselor is working with 107 students, 28 school sites. She collaborates with our staff, with outside agencies. She attends all of their meetings, their IEP meetings, 504 meetings, and then she helps them with career and academic readiness. So with that, the next time we meet, we'll have data supporting all of the great things that they've been doing, and so we'll be back in May, and I think Dr. Park wants to talk.
So beyond the numbers, it was important for our CIIS team to really hear from our students, and we were very fortunate to have Ms. Fikes with us at one of our schools. And we asked a really important question because Goal 2 refers to engagement. Are students engaged? So this was a question that was asked. What do you need to be more connected and motivated to be in school? And that was asked of our focus students at all of the comprehensive high schools and Buena Vista, and student leaders from our junior highs as well. And their number one priority in order to be fully engaged and connected with school was to have positive relationships with their teachers. That was number one. The number 2 that came right behind that is motivating learning environment. So different than how I know I was brought up in school, where the teacher participated in a lot of lecture format, our students are wanting engagement. They're wanting challenging activities, hands-on. They're wanting collaboration. All of these strategies that we have been working on for the last several years. And number 3, they want more fun, engaging activities, for example, dances and festivals beyond the school day. And it was really enlightening to hear from our most important people, which are our students, and they had a lot to share. And in our annual update in May, we will be providing you some of our other priorities that our students have shared for Goal 1 and for Goal 3. That concludes our presentation to the board. Any questions for us?
Mrs. Blair.
Slide number 9, but page 5 of the PowerPoint, the school safety. It's interesting that in most of the categories, the non-traditional students feel a lot safer than our students in grades 7th, 9, and 11. Specifically in the no hitting, not hit, pushed, slapped, or kicked in the last 12 months, 87% of our non-traditional students reported that versus 79% of our traditional high schools. Not called names or insulted in the last 12 months was at 76% for the non-traditional. Is it possible that some of the methods that are used on our non-traditional campuses can somehow be incorporated. I know what makes a difference is that these are smaller campuses, and I get that. But like at CVLA, they are a lot stricter. I mean, there is a strict dress code that is adhered to. You know, the zero tolerance really means zero tolerance. And perhaps we need to start looking at what works at our non-traditional high schools and try to incorporate some of those into our traditional high schools, because this is a vast difference. And so I'm really astonished at that. And then on the servicing, the tutoring, monitoring, tutoring, we had 62 students referred, but only 32 are active. So is that because there's no allocation for the other 30? What causes that?
For our homeless students?
Well, no, I don't know. It's
Which page are you on, Ms. Blair?
You're on the right one.
Okay.
Under the grant support specialist for supporting needs for homeless students. So yeah, that one.
I can actually address that. So there were 62 referred. Some have finished up, so they finished the tutoring.
Oh, got it.
Some have dropped, and we currently have 32 active.
Active. Oh, okay. I just was wondering if it was because we didn't have spots for them,
We have
but
plenty
okay.
of spots and funding.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Na.
Yes, going to page 4. On top, when we talk about chronic sadness in the last 12 months, and 29% of our population of students have felt that, have we defined what type of sadness?
The survey doesn't go into specifics, but I mean, obviously, chronic sadness is some indication of some depressive symptoms. It might be related to environmental factors, things going on in the child's life, but it's not a diagnostic tool.
Sure.
So we can only get a sense of how students are feeling.
So when we're looking at page 9 and talks about where the students feel, how could they be more connected and motivated in school? And it talks about positive student and teacher relationships and motivating learning environment and fun, engaging activities might negate or shift their feelings of chronic sadness, because unfortunately the sadness probably starts at home and it's dripping over to the school system. So if we can be proactive and somehow reach out and help out, whether it through the clubs, sports, or music activities, or intervention, counseling, whatever it takes, if we could kind of draw a more defined picture and move toward those objectives and reaching out to them would be good, because when you look at 44% of non-traditional students and feeling that, I feel more comfort because they have been discovered.
Right, they're in
Yeah.
a setting where services are available.
Sure. The 29% of the population are not discovered.
No, they're not.
Yes.
And
So-
remember, it's anonymous, so we have no way
Correct,
to know
correct.
who they are.
So I guess we need to kind of brainstorm and then see what type of tools that
Yes.
we're able to engage and also discover them and give them support.
And at the elementary level, the K-8, or actually K-6, we do have universal screeners where we're, assessing for that. But at this point, we haven't moved in that direction with the secondary. So
Sure,
it's a
yeah.
possibility as we action plan.
And it could be a small things too, and people engage. And when you're little kids, and a hole in your socks every day hurts you.
Right.
So if we could find those things, and as a grown adults help them, would be really beneficial for our student population.
I would agree with you.
Thank you.
Mr. Cruz.
Yes, for mental and physical health, 62% are eating, and then you have a lot that are not eating, which is something to observe. And I would be interested, would that be middle class folks, in that average, that'd be interesting. I do also notice the mental and physical health for grade 5. Parents are really stepping up. And it tells you, as our culture is changing, you got this going on. So that's pretty good.
Those were really great.
Yeah, so the
great
parents
numbers.
are stepping up in a culture that's, doing things differently. And then what was interesting is, you have academics. Our school is great academics above the state. And you got safety that is also good because you met it. You met the year. But you got connectiveness down. So the teachers are doing an excellent job in the classroom, very controlled, structured. And so having a meaningful education, having kids participate in all that, that means you have to tolerate a variety of behaviors, which in America we have to, because we cherish individuality. We're not in this consensus that everybody should be the same. So my mindset is we should celebrate individuality, but in doing so, you're going to cause an unstructured environment, and that takes art form in a teacher. So connectedness is a very sensitive topic because you're going to change a teacher's way of teaching. So with that in mind, Unfilled, it is a sensitive issue, and teachers are doing a great job, but it's not meaningful with the kids. But I don't know if there's programs or not, but it is a hard thing to do, But individuality is so important, and that's how a classroom should be. Not everybody is the same. So you think any programs in the future helping teachers? Because it is a difficult part. It's very hard.
Yeah, we're looking at some programs. We haven't finalized anything, but we're looking at some particular programs that may help with that for next year.
Thank you. That's it. Thanks.
Did you buzz out? 'Cause I don't see a light. Okay. So no other questions, and I have my questions, a couple of them. Do we not include Boys Republic in this survey?
No, they're not part of the survey.
Why is that?
The transiency, because they're in and out.
Okay. My other question is, do we get grade level breakdowns? You've got them all together, 7, 9, and 11. Do we get grade level breakdowns?
There are.
And do we get school breakdowns?
No.
So your team is looking at, I'm thinking on the never used alcohol, your 7th grade numbers would be higher, and your 9th grade numbers would be a little bit lower, and your 11th grade would be the lowest. And so I'm hoping that people are looking at those permutations throughout, because unless it goes in a balanced way, we have a problem. I was a little concerned about why there's such an imbalance male to female in our 7, 9, and 11 when we have 84%. I would have thought that would have been more 49, 51.
Again, 84% was the number of students that took compared to how many students we have, 7, 9, and 11. So the males were 55, females 45. So it was an even split. So we had more males than females.
That's what I mean. I think that's
So I'm not
unusual.
sure. Some students could have declined taking the test, so that's a possibility.
Okay, my last question then is the asterisks on several. So Feel Safe at School has an asterisk, School Connectedness has an asterisk, and what is that? What is that?
Sure. The California Healthy Kids Survey really looks at an entire package. But for the purposes of LCAP, the state has defined school climate to mean school connectedness and school safety. So that asterisk you are seeing is the metric that we will use to report out on LCAP.
Oh, okay. Thank you. No. Mr. Cruz.
I don't remember anything in school, in high school. I really don't. But I tell you, the thing that I remember the most is a relationship with teachers. And it's in my head, and I think it'll be there forever until I die. Certain teachers. But I don't know what I learned, but I know how they behave towards me. I say that because I think that's the most meaningful thing of them all. Just the relationship, the love of a teacher and a child, student and a child, to the point that a teacher would cover his body if there was anything threatening. So that's
Thank you very much for your
Thank
presentation.
you. And just for your information, concluding our board presentation, the results of the California Healthy Kids Survey will be posted on our district website.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
We are now at comments from our employee representatives. Mr. Ball is ill, so I know he sent Brenda in his absence, but you have no report tonight. Thank you very much. Yvette Farley is not in the audience. Pardon? I don't see it. And Danny Hernandez, CSCA.
Good evening, President Fikes, board members, Superintendent Joseph, and Cabinet. I just wanted to give a warm welcome to Cassie Rock, which is a new employee starting tomorrow at Borba, an instructional aide. Victor Dennis is a plumber, again starting tomorrow over in MOC. You picked an excellent place to work with a bunch of great coworkers. I also wanted to not steal anybody's thunder, but we have a retirement of Steve Braga over at Marshall, 15 years of service. So a warm congratulations to him. Nice segue, we had our pre-retirement seminar over at Magnolia this past weekend. We had almost 300, approximately 275 people. Something to look forward to. I think on all spectrums, how much further we have to work, and a lot of valuable information on what to look forward on the next phase of our career or life. And with that, that concludes my comments.
Thank you. Next, we have community liaisons. Art Bennett, Chino Hills City Council member.
Well, good evening, Madam President, board members, Mr. Joseph, staff, and audience. You know, I was so impressed with the kids from Glenmead. Think about the perspective on this. I would venture to say that most of the people, the majority of the people in this room weren't even around and weren't alive when Glenmead went into, started out 50 years ago. The city of Chino Hills was not even a thought at the time. We are now 26 years old. Personal note, my wife and I were married just shortly before they opened. That's a long time. 50 years ago, in September of this year, I went to Vietnam. So a lot of things have happened in 50 years. It's a long, long time. Especially you kids in the audience, enjoy your times now because it's a long, long, long road. You know, it pains me to have to bring up a couple things tonight, but I think that the general public probably knows about this already. We had two misfortunate things that happened in Chino Hills schools this week. We know probably from the press that a young man at Oak Ridge, 12 years of age, made some threats, made a video, and the reason I'm bringing it up is because in case there is any misinformation or thought that things were not handled quickly and thoroughly, I want to alleviate that concern on anybody's part. This happened sometime on Thursday afternoon. Within 3 hours, this young man was actually arrested. There was a press release that went out on Friday afternoon. It was misfortunate timing because the chief of police press release and the one that was coming out of the department in San Bernardino, there was a slight difference in it. And of course, when the press shows up at a school, it creates a major panic. So I know that there was a meeting of some of the parents on Monday morning. Mr. Joseph was there, I think a couple of board members, our chief of police. It happens to be a school that my kids went to. It's in my district, District 3, and I was advised to stay out of it because the reality is this was an issue that's between the police and the school district. And I want to tell you, I've had numerous conversations with the chief of police. There was a hearing on Tuesday for this individual. He has been released. He is at house arrest, and what will be happening next will be a decision of the school district. So, but I want you to know that our chief of police and our police department and the school district worked hand in glove on this and handled it quickly, handled it succinctly, and handled it totally correctly. Unfortunately, a couple days later, someone who was a former student at Ayala decided to do something similar, was making some threats about some actions he was going to take at the school. Again, as soon as it was found, they arrested him. That individual is out on bail, but they have got everything. They really believe there is no additional threat. In response to this and to help out with the issues of safety that we were just talking about with LCAP, there has been additional, besides the school resource officers, there's been additional undercover and uniformed personnel at the schools, since that time, and they will be there at least through tomorrow and maybe into next week. But I think it's important for the public to know that as a city council member, I can tell you that we are very, very proud of our police department and our school district staff and administration for handling these threats in our community very quickly, correctly, and very satisfactorily. Now, another thing, a side issue for people that, and I'm kind of going to go out a little bit, and Greg, stop me if I get too far front. But the Measure G issue, the $208 million bond issue, I want people to understand there's a big chunk of that money going to school safety. So this district is acutely aware of the importance to the parents and to the students and to the teachers of school safety. And a lot of money is going to be spent developing technology and fail-safe methods to make sure that tragedies like the one that happened in Florida do not happen in this school district. But again, it's been touched upon that a lot of this is a societal thing right now. Social media, you can love it or hate it, but the reality is that there's a lot of bad stuff that's going on out there. And as parents, you better wake up and take the responsibility of being aware of what your kids are doing. You have to be responsible as a parent, and the kids will learn that if you're watching them and keeping tabs on what they're doing, that they're less likely to get involved with things that they shouldn't be doing. There's a lot of bad choices to be made, and social media, it's great in some respects, but the fact that it is so rampant with all of the different social media platforms, it's incumbent upon us as parents, school administrators, police, to really monitor that. So enough of that downer stuff. I did want to mention we have a couple things coming up in the city of Chino Hills between now and the next board meeting. On this Saturday, there's going to be what we call a pop-up city hall. This is going to be at the Lowe's at the Crossroads Marketplace. This is the Costco Center, okay? The Lowe's that's there. What we're going to do is, weather permitting, or even if it rains a little bit, we're going to have pop-up easy-ups, and our mayor and our city manager is going to be there, and I believe we'll also have someone from the police department there answering just general questions that you want to have about city government and what goes on. So if you're interested and you have specific questions, you live in the area and you want to come to that, we would welcome you to come to that. On March 8th, we are going to have the Chino Valley Chamber of Commerce is going to have a lunch, a salute to public safety. It's going to be at Los Serranos Country Club, and if you contact the Chino Valley Chamber of Commerce, you can get tickets for that. Again, salute to public safety. Now more than ever, we need to really, really praise those people that protect us on a daily basis, the police and fire. City of Chino has a fantastic police department. Chief Comstock is a wonderful lady who has worked her way up through the ranks and heads a very good department. Darren Goodman, who is our chief, our captain of the sheriff's department, and our chief runs a great department in Chino Hills. We're very, very fortunate. Chief, the fire department is fantastic. It's a unique situation because it covers not only Chino and Chino Hills, but Montclair and some of the areas in Ontario. So we've got great public safety people out there taking care of us on a daily basis. So get out and show your support if you can. And one additional thing that is coming up, and I apologize, I don't have the date. You guys probably can tell me. We're going to have the necessary program every 15 minutes. and it's going to be at Ayala this year, at least in the city of Chino Hills. Do you know exactly what day that is? I'm not sure if it's before your next board meeting or not, but what this is, they stage basically mocked up traffic accidents. We do this every year, this time of the year, to encourage, especially juniors and seniors that are going to be going to proms, to show them the damages of drinking and driving, or drinking and being under the influence. And it's a very realistic and sobering exercise that we will have in front of Ayala High School very shortly. It'll be in the morning one day, and the next day, the people that supposedly pass over, or fatalities in that, don't go home to their homes that night. They actually stay someplace else, and they have a memorial service for them the next day. It's a very, very gut-wrenching thing that wakes up our youth to tell them, look, this is what happens when you make some bad decisions. Bad things happen to good kids. And not only, it might not be you causing the damage, but you might be the recipient of it because of somebody else's bad action. So, crazy things. But, I want everybody that's listening to this to know this school board and this school district, I would put them up against any private school that's out there as far as caring for their kids and giving a good education, because we hire nothing but the best teachers. We have dedicated people. It's evidenced by the fact that how many of them spend 20, 30 years here, and sometimes longer. So, keep up the good work. You're doing a great job, and let's hope that we don't have any more incidents to have to deal with soon. But at least one thing we do know, that with all the active shooter drills and everything else that we've been going through, we know that we're prepared for the worst, and let's just pray that it doesn't happen to us, because it's and pray for those families in Florida, because it's just nonsense and it shouldn't be happening. So God bless. Have a great rest of the week. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see Mike Krieger, and no one from Supervisor Hagman's office. So we are now at comments from the audience on items not on the agenda. Pat, are there any requests to speak on non-agenda items?
We have 2 requests to speak.
Speakers will be called in the order the request was received. Please listen for your name and be prepared to approach the podium. Any comments on agenda items will be accepted during consideration of that item. Once the board has commenced deliberations on the issue, speaker cards will not be accepted. The board is very interested in your comments, but please bear in mind that the board typically does not respond to comments during this time on the agenda, as it is reserved specifically for public comments. Individual members may respond during board comments at the end. Mrs. Blair, will you please explain the light system?
Did you have a question before I proceed, sir? No, I saw your hand up. No? Yes. Did you want to submit a form?
That's what I need to do, yes.
Okay. Donnie, can you guide him? This gentleman would like a speaker form. Speakers, you have 3 minutes in which to make your comments. Please begin your comments at the green light. The yellow light indicates you have 30 seconds in which to complete your comments. The red light indicates your time is over. And before you begin your comments, please adjust the microphone as necessary so that you can be clearly heard. And audience members, please refrain from making comments while speakers are at the podium.
Speakers, please remember that in accordance with Board Bylaw 9323, Bylaws of the Board, Meeting Conduct, limit remarks to 3 minutes total. And please limit remarks to new points. The board would like to remind you that Board Policy 1312.1 contains the procedure for anyone who wishes to file a complaint against a district employee. The first speaker is Sebastian Cognetta, followed by Mike Cargile.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Joseph, and Cabinet, as well as members of the community. My name is Sebastian Cognetta. I'm the founding CEO for Allegiance STEAM Academy, and I'm here as an expression of gratitude. Thank you for the support in endorsing our charter and for the ongoing support, Superintendent Joseph, Dr. Enfield, and staff. I can't express to you how much the MOU with the timelines have served as guidance and support. They've been instrumental in getting Allegiance this ambitious goal to open for the fall. So I appreciate that gesture and the ongoing support we're receiving. I felt it's important to share a little bit about myself as a founding CEO of Allegiance and what drew me to this opportunity. I'm an advocate of public education, a fierce advocate of that first and foremost. I'm also a strong believer in school choice. School choice can be a pretty powerful thing. If you think about what it takes for a family to make a decision when they have options around schools, choice can lead to investment and engagement in communities from the community. And it leads us to a result of not buy-in, which is nice, but true ownership. And that's a really special thing to see in schools. The important thing about school choice that resonated with me is I'm a fierce advocate of it for families that aren't always given school choice. And until there's a better way, I believe charters can be an option for many families that may have been prevented from choice without us as an option. It's important for me to share that. In these early stages of my tenure, I've spent a lot of time listening and really listening to the members of this community to better understand it. I'm well aware of the history and some of the divisiveness in the community regarding charters. I understand that. I'm sensitive to it, and it's shaping my vision for Allegiance. I was fortunate enough to meet with the superintendent and deputy superintendent, Dr. Enfield, last week, and I shared a little bit about my ambitious goals to really forge a partnership together. I don't believe in charters being an island unto themselves. Nobody is served in that setting. We have an opportunity to be what charters were supposed to be, like an innovative, sort of on the cutting edge research and development side of public education, which hopefully leads to some good lessons for all of us. And I'm a little selfish too. I hope to take advantage of all the great practices in this school district as well. And I think that's going to happen if we can come together and reach a collaborative piece, which I've already seen in place through the guidance that we're getting from the district and staff. So I thank you for this opportunity. I look forward to many more years working together, and I'm open to all feedback and opportunities to collaborate further than what have already been established today. Thank you so much.
Mike Cargile.
Hi, thank you very much for allowing me to address you. I am a parent. I have 2 kids at Ayala High School. I'm going to read because I only have 3 minutes. So I recently talked to some security guards at some of the Chino Valley schools. I was shocked to find that they've been purposely prohibited from providing basic defensive measures for our kids. They aren't even allowed to have anything in the way of firearms, knives, or even protective vests, not only on campuses, but in their cars. And when I pressed them on this, they all agreed that in the event of an active shooter incident, they would all run away. They would run away because the district has taken away any means of protecting themselves, let alone the kids. The kids will be on their own. To me, this is not acceptable. In fact, I believe it to be borderline criminal negligence in the event something like this does occur, because we've had so many warnings from other schools in other parts of the country. I'm sure you're all aware, you were just told about the would-be copycat shooter that was arrested this week threatening to shoot up Ayala. He was a former student. God forbid something like that actually happens, but as a prior military service member, my greatest concern at this point is not the copycat kid. It's the terrorist. It's the one who realizes the incredible vulnerability our public schools now pose, because we've told them we don't protect these places. We arm security guards at concerts, at sporting events. We arm them at places like courthouses and airports. But we refuse to arm the places that house our greatest treasures, our kids. And this is unacceptable. God forbid one day, instead of the headline at Parkland, 17 kids shot, 5 heavily armed gunmen enter the building and no kids leave. That is a very, very feasible possibility, and I do not want this to ever happen. Second point, my kids at Ayala, I talked to the other kids, and English, you're an English teacher. English is atrocious. they can barely read and write. And I ask them, what are you doing in school? And this is AP and honors English. And they go, we're making music videos. This is part of our curriculum. Instead of reading and writing, I'm a writer. I deal with writers all the time. These kids have no ability. I'm not saying all the kids, but my gosh, it's horrible. Last point, dovetailing on my first point. I'm told that next week the teachers, there are teachers and students who are going to lead a protest. And they're going to walk out and they're going to protest against gun violence or something like that. Mind you, these are the same teachers who assign hours and hours of homework to these kids because they can't get the work done in a normal class period. But somehow they're going to have the time to lead a walkout of something that they think they're going to be relevant on. I think they should spend their time in the classroom teaching the kids to read and write. Thank you very much.
Ken McCutcheon.
I'm a grandparent. My name is Ken McCutcheon. Mr. Na, I've known you for several years. I've known Mr. Cruz for a few years. The problem we have at E.J. Marshall is I've been a volunteer for the last 7 years. I'm no longer volunteering because I was released. We'll leave it at that. The first issue I had was with the office gals. My granddaughter, at the time, this was a few years ago, called me. She forgot her trumpet, and so I brought the trumpet up and I said, would you please see she gets it by a certain time. At 3:15, when school was out, it was still sitting where I was, where I had placed it. And I said, is there a reason why she never got it? And he said, oh well, like who cares? And I'm sorry, that is the wrong attitude. That's number one. And I told Mr. Cruz this on the phone. Number two was I have a friend that wanted to volunteer. She was retiring. This was a few years ago. She was my next door neighbor. And I said, just go up to the school and talk to Gladys or one of them, and they should hook you up with a teacher. She came back to me the next day. She said, they didn't even want to talk to me. They were very rude to her. And this is a problem I've had with both Gladys and her sidekick, and Mrs. Boyd also. I volunteered for 7 years there. She not once has said thank you, smiled. To me, she's a very negative vice principal. And the last issue was Mrs. Hester, who was principal last year, asked me to come into the office and talk to her. And she says, we've had a problem with Gladys and the other gal, said they want you out of the school. I said, okay, is there a reason? And she said, no. And then I proceeded to tell her the first two stories that had happened, because at that time I had done nothing wrong. Since then, I did something. It was an accident, and the parents threatened to sue the district, and Mr. Cruz and Mr. Joseph said they don't want me there. So I think that was handled very poorly. The principal called me into the office when I was coming to. I said, I've been there for 7. I was starting my 8th year, and she said, we don't want you here. Not thank you for what you've done for the last 7 years. And then Mrs. Boyd chipped in on a
Thank you.
Okay.
We are now at changes and deletions. Pat, are there any changes or deletions?
The following changes are on the agenda. Item 3C2 CIIS, page 32, request for proposal for the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act youth programs for 2018 through 2021 is yellow sheeted to clarify the fiscal impact. Item 3E1, Human Resources, page 49, Certificated Classified Personnel Items is yellow sheeted, and under resignation, delete the name Ernesto Perez.
Thank you. We are now at tonight's only action item. Pat.
Item 2A1, 2018 California School Boards Association Delegate Assembly Election.
Recommend the Board of Education vote for no more than 7 candidates to the California School Boards Association Delegate Assembly, Subregion 16B. Are there any speakers?
No speakers.
May I have a motion to nominate up to 7 candidates?
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Roscoe.
I would like to, given that I've worked with all these individuals, I would like to nominate the individuals who are incumbents. Christina Cameron Otero, Barbara Drew, and it should be Barbara Dew.
Barbara what?
Dew, D-E-W. Karen Payzant, Barbara Schneider, Jane Smith, Mark Sumner, and Donna West. All these individuals are so dedicated to the school system, and so I would like to see them continue because of their dedication.
So do you need a motion from me?
Well, actually, we made the motion,
And we've had a second.
right. So further discussion, if anyone has any questions to me, since I know them.
Or any other candidates that people would like
Oh,
to
that
put
too.
forward?
No.
Hearing none, then all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion passes with a vote of 5-0. That concludes this action item. We are now at consent. Pat, are there any speakers on consent items?
And no speakers on consent items.
Board members, do you have any polls? Mrs. Roscoe?
None.
Mr. Cruz? Mrs. Hernandez-Blair?
No pools.
Mr. Na?
I have no polls.
And I have none. For the remainder, well, for all of the consent items, then, may I have a motion?
So moved.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Na, seconded by Mrs. Blair. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes with a vote of 5-0. On. We are now at information items. Are there any questions or comments? Hearing none, we are now at board member and superintendent communications. Mrs. Orozco.
And I will make mine brief. Let's start with the retirements. And so we have, and as typical, it seems like, we have several individuals with several years of service. So we have Christine Iverson, elementary teacher at Walnut Elementary. Yolanda Linares, 21 years of 21 years of service, elementary teacher at Walnut. Gayla Mead, 34 years of service at Ayala High School. She's a counselor. She's such a, I had the opportunity to meet her in, when we were looking at linked learning. What a wonderful person. So Gayla Mead. Fred Altenberg, 14 years of service, digital, video, and yearbook teacher at Don Lugo. And even though Danny mentioned his name, I'll mention it again, Steve Braga, 15 years of service, custodian 1 at Marshall. To all of you, I wish you a wonderful retirement. Thank you for your service to our district. And just want to indicate that I did go to the Glenmead anniversary. So nice, so neat to see so many individuals who had come back just for the anniversary. So it was really nice attended, a great event. And then I went to the Festival of the Arts, and as usual, our students are producing some wonderful artwork, and I mean, there's clearly some professionals in those in that artwork. It's just incredible. And Art, thank you for the information on the salute to public safety, because you are absolutely correct. We are a community who is very fortunate to have some great partnerships. And so with that, I will conclude my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cruz.
Yeah, thank you, Art. Terrific job. I just wanted to say the gentleman that spoke about the gun issue, and that is, Sacramento, they broadcast that our school districts are gun-free. And so, that really doesn't help because 90% of our shooters happen in gun-free zones. So the cowards go and attack those places. So a lot of this has a lot to do with our legislators. And I think it's very obscene that they tell us that our schools, where you stated, which is very true, that's where our treasure is located. It's crazy. It's really crazy. And we know it's not the guns. We know that the culture has changed. We glorify the music that pushes violence, the games. Our kids have it really hard. And the media, how they're pushing it. I ask myself, I'm going to sidestep, okay? But I ask myself, of the millions of abortions that have occurred, why don't they do that for them as well? But it's guns, not our kids. And it's very upsetting because I'm not a dumb person. I see these things. So I feel for you, I would love our veterans, teachers, veteran police officers as teachers, that they have concealed weapons. Because I know what teachers do. They're going to hug our kids and get a shot in the back. Because that's what teachers do. There's a relationship with student and teacher. And we know that teachers, administration, that's what they do. But, shooters go right in. And they know that they're safe. No guns. So I hope things change. And how things change? We get these people out of the legislature and put people that have common sense. It just makes sense, right? I mean, all of us know that. So I have to apologize. You're right. It's embarrassing because common sense tells us what we should do. So, yeah. Thank you. Oh yeah, I have to talk. I attended the science fair. And I just want to share some experiments that some of these kids did. You have caffeine mixed with soy plant grow faster than other things. Best minerals for plant growth is calcium, phosphorus, and potassium. Coke stain the teeth compared to coffee. Which disinfectant kills the most germs? Target, Up and Up wipes compared to Clorox wipes and Lysol wipes. How do different types of music affect heart and blood pressure? Indian music and Mozart comes down the heart and blood pressure. Seeds that are microwave, they grow faster than the control group. Which brand of microwave popcorn pops the most? It's Stater Brothers. And then you got Jolly Time and Pop Secret. And then the artwork, it's pretty amazing what the kids have done. But, we have to thank Troy Ingram of his talented ways of doing things and putting the work in these pamphlets. But, yeah, some of this work is beautiful. It is beautiful. And then I want to say the Arrow Lights was today for crossover ceremony. Evan Chang, Logan Cromwell, Caleb Kim, Aiden Gonzalez, Karish Mapara, Aiden Meyer, Colin Mulqueen, Arjun Nabiar, Jack Perry, Drew Stadler, Cameron Sang, and Jackson Van Voris. They all received their Arrow Lights of crossover. And if I was going to say something, I would say that, being responsible is the most joyful thing there is. And I hope these children, the things they've done, that they have great joy in their responsibility as they get older. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Blair.
No comments.
Mr. Na.
Yes, I have attended Glen Mead's 50th year anniversary, and as I have mentioned, I was just blown away. Where we all come together celebrating the success of the school, but it was about the children. And some children became adults, believe it or not. But this is our community. Yes, we have concerns over Florida and every elsewhere, but we do need to defend our students. We need to defend our community. We need to defend our weak. So we do need to continue to have these conversations. I have spoken with our police department personnel and our security personnel, and we need to just brainstorm together, and we will protect our kids. They're our future. I have mentioned as before, it used to be just the drugs that were harmful to our students. But now we had started with ISIS and domestic terrorists and people with mental conditions. So we do have to come together. I'd like to thank Big Al. He's our security person at Chino Hills High School. He's back. He's a bionic man because he's had his hip replaced, but he's good as ever. And matter of fact, many students had really missed him when he was out. So this is what you can see, that we have such a great relationship with our staffs and our students. I'd like to thank John Miller, where he's out there in Chino High School during all the breaks out there, not only just picking up trash on the ground, but really engaging students. Many of them were his former students at junior high, so he's making great connections. At lunchtime, we had few kids that were, I don't know, just sticking out, and I said, let's go and see what they're doing. So I walked with them and talked to them. They say, yes, we have a great principal, and it makes us really happy to be in school. So kids react as animals do, so it is our duty to care and love them and see how they grow. I'd like to thank, yes, Gayla. She's been a counselor at Ayala High School, but another position she had was she was a visiting teacher for kids who were ill, sometimes and many times terminally ill. And she would laugh with them, she would cry with them. And she had left a great legacy here. George Lopez, the kid spoke from Glenmead. His mom just told me that he'll be in the hospital for a whole week. So we need to keep him in our hearts and make sure that he would fight this tumor. And it's evil. But when we come together, she said, the mother said, his son reacts much better with all the treatments. So it is important that we give hope in anyone, everyone, in any situations. Thank you.
Superintendent Joseph.
Yes, Councilman Bennett had mentioned about the every 15 minutes program. I happened to be at Ayala last week speaking to the students and Mrs. Yarborough, the principal, and they were going back and forth because of the fact that they had lost a student a few weeks ago due to a drunk driver. And the kids were questioning whether they should have every 15 minutes or not, out of sensitivity to the family. But they've decided to do it, and actually it's March 22nd and 23rd. Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez, for letting me know, okay, back there, that they've decided on the dates. So I wanted to thank you, Mr. Bennett, for mentioning it. Would you like to golf and help students with their college costs? You're in luck. The 9th annual Hit the Greens for Scholarships golf tournament is set for Friday, March 9th at Villano Country Club in Chino Hills. Proceeds from the event will fund college scholarships for CVUSD's class of 2018. For details, see the announcements on the district's website. Social media, gangs, drug trends, and other topics, like I'm sure it'll be safety, that can affect your youth will be discussed at the Spring Parent Information Forum to be held 6:30 to 8, Wednesday, March 14th in the Chino High Multipurpose Room. A light dinner, free childcare, and Spanish translation will be provided. And that concludes my comments.
Thank you. I want to thank all district personnel who were quickly responsive to the concerns at our local schools when they were threatened. It is comforting to me as a community member and a matter of pride as a board member to be able to attend those parent meetings and see how many of our staff are there providing answers for parents, providing support for our school employees, and I'm very grateful. I'm grateful to my fellow board members. It's when we go there to those meetings, it's nice to know that we are there to support our constituents as well as to be available to them for our ear is available to them as well. I would like to ask that the district think about convening the principals who've been affected by these threats and helping to design some kind of list of, priorities or actions that could be taken by each site so that, you don't forget to do something or you know exactly who to call when you're in a crisis mode. I have told, I know all my colleagues, as a young principal, I had a fire on my campus, and I did a completely stupid thing trying to remain calm, walked right by the firebox, walked right by my secretary, and pulled out a phone book, trying to stay calm. And there were so many other things I could have done. As many times as we had rehearsed what to do. You never rehearse phoning 911. And so I do think that for unusual events, maybe to pull them together and talk about their experience and what worked for them and where their needs were could help us formulate a plan. And secondly, Mrs. Blair, when you're asking about continuation schools or CVLA, when you talk about a small school, I think sometimes people are thinking it's fewer kids. But one of the things that I think we forget about is it's also more adults per child on that campus. So more ability to connect with those kids. Typically, the campus is also smaller. And so it's easier to supervise those kids because there aren't as many places for them to be. And lastly, because the teachers don't have as many students, they are able to make more connections. And I think that making those connections is key. I often say, as a former continuation school principal, there hasn't been a continuation school that's had a school shooting yet. That's a pretty remarkable thing to be able to say. And I think it's because of all of those items. I hope that as we are pursuing programs to look at, to help connect our students with our schools, that we start with identifying the programs we already have in place that help connect students with our schools, because we have some pretty wonderful programs already in place. And I think it's important that we grow those programs and supplement those programs rather than start anew with a fresh program. So that concludes my comments, and I adjourn the regular meeting of the Board of Education at 8:33.